All right. Welcome, CvCISO Podcast listeners. Welcome to episode 22 of the CvCISO Podcast. Today is Meg's topic of discussion. Jordan's joining us too. So it's the three of us here. What are we talking about, Meg?
Today we are going to have a mental health day. And last week, Jordon mentioned the concept of radical acceptance. And so we are going to talk about radical acceptance. And I just want to say that last night, a bunch of CvCISOs got together in Minnesota again. And the number of people that came up to me to ask how I was doing after being off work for about 4 weeks was super cool. And it just makes this topic mean a lot more to me. And also has helped me kind of radically accept things that are going on in my life, which led to the situation that I was in. Let's start by just talking about what radical acceptance is.
Well, and let's apply it too to, because some of the listeners, I think, of the CvCISO podcast listen, like, how does this apply to my job? And how does it apply? Because the truth is, so many of the things that apply to your job apply to your life.
Yep.
So not only do I need radical acceptance in my life to accept it, to give it, but also on the job.
On the job, especially with the overwhelming number of people that suffer with mental illness. And I don't know why it is, Evan. I don't know if it's just you because you're completely open about this, or if it's common in the field, but I've never heard a group of people talk about mental illness as much as I hear the group of people that I'm now a part of, which is super cool because it's usually something you want to keep hidden.
Well, this was a topic that came up yesterday too at Hacks and Hops, and it came up in the panel. And so, you have a big audience and it's, 4 of us sitting up there, and the question was, about mental health. And I think I've lost friends over the years, really good people, to suicide. And I don't know if I'm like other people where, like, when that happens or has happened, I always ask myself, what could I have done?
Right.
What signs did I miss? I said I was their friend, and why didn't they reach out to me? Why didn't they talk to me? Why? You go through that part, and there was one person, and it was interesting because I haven't mentioned his name for a while, but Robbie.
Mm-hmm.
I brought it back to Robbie, and most of the people are like, who's Robbie? Well, Robbie was a penetration tester that worked at FR Secure, a number of years ago, and he committed suicide. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and it almost always, it's going to bring tears to my eyes now because Robbie was a beautiful human being, and I loved him, and I missed him. I missed him today, and I won't forget that when I got that call, I was with my wife, we were having dinner, and life was normal. I got the call from HR about this, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I find out that he had all this entire, it was like a second life that nobody knew about.
Mm.
And I made a pledge after processing and everything that one of the reasons why I think Robbie didn't share, and I think a lot of people don't share, is because of the stigma around this. And the stigma is absolute 100% unadulterated bullshit.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. You've convinced yourself in your own mind, and maybe the situation and the people that you've surrounded yourself with, that these are taboo subjects that we don't talk about.
Right.
And if we do that, then people do kill themselves. People do feel helpless. They feel like, so we need to do the best. I think it's just life, right? Yeah. So I don't want to ever have another Robbie. And it may happen, but at least when it happens, I won't have to have that hard discussion with myself. Like, didn't I say anything?
Right.
Did I not create a safe place where you could share these things?
Yeah.
And since we've done that, we at FR Secure, we had all the leadership team and many of the employees back, a few years ago, we went through a mental health first aid course
Mm.
to learn more about this stuff. But it's just crazy how much of it is tied to this stigma. My son's a police officer in Lenexa, and I was talking to him. I made the trip down there to ask him during the COVID thing and the George Floyd thing. I can only imagine how hard it is to be a police officer. So I made the trip down there and I asked him, how you dealing with this? How's your mental health? He's like, it's hard. And I'm like, well, what kind of resources do you have? And he said, well, we have resources, but nobody uses them. I'm like, why doesn't anybody use them? He goes, because it goes on your record. A police officer can't go to a mental health professional. Are you kidding me?
Right.
It's just crazy how twisted it is. So anyway,
I
sorry.
think a lot of professions. What's interesting is, and we will get back to radical acceptance, but what's interesting is now on job applications, they ask about mental health. There was a question. Gosh, I'm trying to think of how it was framed, but it was something that you knew what it was getting at was mental health. And when I did that, I would just say no to everything, because I'm like, this could be a precursor to you go in pile A or pile B.
It was asking like directly, like, do you have a mental health issue or something like that? Or?
It was more like, let me think about it for a minute, and I'll come up with what it generally was saying. But it was very clear that it was getting at those types of issues.
Well, do you see how that's crazy?
That is crazy.
That in and of itself is crazy, because you have, take my son, for instance, you have police officers.
Right.
And of course, they're all, just in the situations they have to deal with all the time, the high stress, all this other stuff, the hatred you're getting from the public, certain parts of the public, all that stuff. And then you penalize them for getting mental health help. Whereas what you should do is you should reward them. You should encourage it. And because when I recognize the fact that I need help, that I'm in a bad place, there's a self-awareness with that. There's an honesty with that you can take into it makes you a better person. That should be rewarded.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I did ask, I'm like, isn't this illegal? Like, that should be illegal. But it was framed in a way that wasn't like a direct question about mental health. And I was told that the reason that is people are, the whole idea of equity, and are the people that you hired, is there like an equal distribution of race and what have you? And that was the reason that I was given, because then they can claim you as somebody that's been hired that has mental health issues.
Well, here's the stupid stuff about that too, man. All kinds of hot topics like diversity. If I hire you, I'll take it to you, Meg, because you're different than me, right? You're a woman. If I hired you only because you were a woman, how unfair is that to you? And you're more than just a woman.
Right.
You bring unique perspectives. You're talented. You've got all these other things that are so important. And because the big reason why, what I value in diversity is your unique perspective.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to think like you. I've never been a woman. So it's not the fact that you're a woman. It's not the fact that you're black. It's not the fact that you're Asian. It's not the fact that none of that stuff. It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is if you hired somebody just because of one aspect of them,
right,
you're underselling all the other values that they bring to the table.
Them and others.
So what you were trying to do by, diversity, hiring more people who aren't white men, you missed the entire point. Yes, you should hire more people that aren't white men, but not because they're people that aren't white men.
Exactly.
It's because they're different. They've got a different perspective. So then they feel like, well, the reason why you hired me is because I'm bringing something to the table. You are bringing something to the table beyond your skin color.
Right.
It's crazy that the world has kind of gone that way in so many places.
Right.
Because what you intended to do to lift people up, you're actually pushing them down more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what radical acceptance means is basically that what it says is that you're radically accepting, you just accept the situation that you're in. Now, what it doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that you agree with. Because when I first heard the term radical acceptance, by the way, it's a dialectical behavior therapy, and I learned about that when I was in the hospital. And we specifically talked about radical acceptance. What it doesn't mean is that you agree with. And when I first heard it, I was like, no, not happening. Because I felt like it meant that means I'm agreeing with this situation, or I'm agreeing with the person, or agreeing with whatever. And that isn't what it means. It's not an acceptance of that. It's just accepting the reality. This is the situation I'm in. This is what happened. And so I'm going to accept the fact, because otherwise, and this is what was said to me that had such a positive impact, and that was, what reality do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a reality of misery? Or do you want to live in a reality of acceptance? And that, to me, because no matter what, there's going to be misery. But if you don't accept what your situation is, what your reality is, then you get in like a self-perpetual motion of misery.
Yeah.
And just stay.
And denial.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. I think the world could use a hell of a lot more radical acceptance, because we all see things every day that we disagree with, especially like in the political climate and, just things, right? Or your situation. But, because you can apply the same sort of mentality, I think, to things beyond just your situation,
Correct.
like,
Society.
because I accept lots of things. I don't endorse many things,
Yeah.
like people who disagree with me on, that's one of the reasons why I actually sort of enjoy talking to people of different political persuasions than me. I have to be in the mood, is because, one, it helps me understand their perspective, because they're still human beings. They're still worthy of love.
Yeah.
Yes, we disagree, but I'm not going to get so damn emotional about it where it's going to overcome any logic. The best decisions I ever make are the ones where emotion and logic are in balance with each other. So like that, I love the concept of radical acceptance. And I think it's a learned behavior, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, another kind of benefit of radical acceptance is the idea that you can't change reality unless you accept reality. Like, if you can make the world a better place, you can change your situation, but it's hard to do that when you're not even accepting what reality actually is in the moment.
Yeah. But the only person you can change is you. That's part of radical acceptance, is that I can't change the situation. I can't change the way the other person is choosing to behave. I can't change other people. And that
Awesome.
that is, that's the only person I can change is me.
See, you just you're validating stuff that, like when I went through marriage counseling with my wife way back when, I came out of that with two things. And the first thing was probably very hurtful for her to hear me say, but it was the truth. And I think the truth is, it sets you free. I told her I didn't love her.
Mm.
Not a good thing probably to say after your first marriage counseling session. But I had to validate that. Like, when I say love you, I mean like the biblical kind of love.
Yeah.
Where I keep no record of wrongs, where I choose to love you no matter what, where even when the feeling's not there, right? Where I'm looking out for your best interest above my own, right? It was that kind of love. And the second thing was that I wasn't going to work on our marriage.
Mm.
I'm not working on our marriage. I'm going to work on me. Because to your point, I can't change my marriage. I can't change how you behave. What I can change is how I behave. I can choose to be the best me I can be. And at the end of the day, if you're still here, praise God.
Then
if
we
you're
are
not,
together.
If you're not, it's still what I had to do.
Yeah.
And so it's that, because I never knew that's radical acceptance, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I never knew that was a word that you would associate with that. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
When we went over this topic at Top Dog for a team meeting, I downloaded a resource for mental health hackers. It's a distress tolerance handout. It's like a worksheet. It's super good. I would advise people want to kind of check out what radical acceptance really is and how to practice it. It's a very logical handout. Tells you there's like a checklist on it on how to actually practice here, factors that interfere with acceptance and all this stuff. So it's a nice little worksheet to learn how to practice it in your life. And one of the things, so one of the little bullet points is what has to be accepted, and one of the points is talking about limitations on the future. So accepting that there are limitations on the future for everyone, but only realistic limitations need to be accepted. And so sometimes you get caught up in this, I'm limited on what I can do and the influence I can have and what change I can actually make. But, part of radical acceptance is logical. It's like, wait, you have to be realistic about your past, the facts of the past, where you're at, and what you can do in the future.
Well, and it's easy to get fooled too about what you can do in the future. I was talking to a friend of mine at Hacks and Hops yesterday as I replayed, how the day played out and, the people that I met. One of them was a guy who's, struggling with alcohol abuse, and his marriage is not in a good place or whatever. And I explained to him, I'm like, the difference between guilt and conviction? He's like, no. I go, this is something that really set me free in a lot of ways. Like, guilt is when you're reminded of the mistakes that you made in the past and they keep you back. They hold you down. It's like when, oh, I want to be a vCISO. I want to be a CISO. I want to be this. I want to be that. And then that guilt is like, yeah, but remember that time you really fucked up? You're not capable of that. What if people find out? What if people find out that you've been to jail 6-7 times, Evan? What if people find out, the things that you did back in the day? That's guilt. Whereas conviction is, I made a mistake. I'm turning from that mistake.
Yep.
And I'm going to be a better person.
Yep.
One of those things holds you back and never lets you fulfill your potential. The other is uplifting.
Yeah.
And makes you recognize that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now. What you know is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And then it opens yourself up to this amazing potential for what might be in my future, this future reality.
Yeah, guilt is what turns to shame, and then that's probably the root of a lot of mental health things.
It absolutely it holds you in handcuffs, man. You can't get out of it.
Yeah. One of the terms that I learned about as well was ruminating, and that's something that I really struggle with. So before I went to the hospital, I'll just get in my head and it'll just spin like this. Just concepts or things I said or things somebody else said or something somebody did. And really in mental health, it's a lot about choices. And there's always a good and a bad, if you will. And, you can choose to, if I'm in that ruminating state, radical acceptance is something that I can choose to focus on that will allow me to get out of this hamster wheel of spinning in my thoughts. And it's really just about finding whatever works for you to get you out of that ruminating place. Because leading up to suicide ideation is typically something that's going on, and ruminating is a very common something. But that helps is to get yourself out of that.
Absolutely. I heard this originally from a pastor. And so I was telling my friend yesterday, I go through the same things. And that's a thing I think about when we don't talk about these things. When we stigmatize them, we lose the connection between I'm not that different than you are.
Right.
The things you're struggling with today, a lot of it I've struggled with. Now, you can go further, right? You can bring it back, whatever. So it may not be as extreme as what you're going through right now, but I can easily see if the right things hadn't happened that I could be in the same place you are right now.
Yeah.
And so some of that stuff isn't even you. It's just it's that the situation you were in. So back to that radical acceptance. There have been times in my life where the right person happened to be there at the right time when I needed it, keep me from doing something really, really bad, either to myself or to others. And it sometimes can be that freaking close.
Right.
And I heard yesterday when I was talking to my friend about who was struggling, like, this will sound crazy, but, I learned this originally from a pastor about conviction and guilt. And there will be times, because I know in that context, guilt comes from Satan, conviction comes from Jesus.
Right.
And so there will be times when hopefully I'm alone, but there's probably been people that have heard it, where I'm feeling guilty and I say, excuse my language, fuck you, Satan.
Yeah.
Fuck you. You're not taking me down because I've been built for something special. And I don't know what it is, but I know it is. And I'm not going to let you ruin it.
Yeah. I have a shirt that says, "Not today, Satan."
Right?
Well, I'm a little, because I know I have a hard stop on this recording today, but a little lighter side of this concept as it pertains to VCSOs, because there's a lot of things that just lit the light bulb in my brain as I was looking into this. And it's like, and you can start very easily with risk assessments. If you don't know where you're at, if you're rejecting where you're at,
right.
The reality and the facts of where you're at, then you can't really improve. So it's a radical acceptance as it pertains to VCSOs is a lot about accepting where you're at as far as risks and where you want to go. It just fits right into that. And it might be painful in a different kind of way than what we're talking about with mental health. But
I think that's a great segue, man, because I can't tell you how many times over the years I've heard from executives that I don't want to know. I don't want to know. And I'm like, why don't you want to know? Well, because if I know, then I got to do something about it. So it's just like this, like, I don't want to face reality. I'd rather live in this ignorance.
Mhm.
Right.
And so it's rather than the radical acceptance. I already know my security sucks. How bad does it suck? So I can accept that and make a plan, to make it better. I love that. And also from a VCSO standpoint, sometimes we're afraid to tell people the truth.
Right.
Because they're never going to accept that. So maybe I won't tell them. Well, you're not helping.
Yeah.
So you need to accept your reality, that they need to accept their reality, because that's the purpose for me being here.
Right.
And I think also accepting the reality of, am I providing value to my customer? What if they're not listening? You get into this. Sometimes it can get really, really frustrating when you know so much that they're supposed to do this thing and they won't do it. They won't listen to you. They put you in a silo,
Yeah.
whatever. And how many times too do we have VCSOs who are getting into this business that are struggling growing their business? Like, can't sell. I've been there. I lost my house because I couldn't sell. Right? It's okay. Accept it. Create, what things might be able to fix, not fix or change this reality that I find myself in. Because then you're switching from the emotion to the logic part of it. The emotion part is this like frustration, confusion, anger, fear. It's overwhelming. Emotion. But then I think when you go through this, like accepting the reality, that's a logical choice. You've now allowed logic to enter into this equation. Okay, I accept it. Then logic is like, how do I make it better? Where do I go from here? So I think maybe a lot of it too is like accepting the emotions. You got to process it. You don't want to deny that either.
Right.
Like, I'm angry. No, I'm not. I'm not angry. Well, you just fucking burned down a house, man. It seemed like you were pretty angry right there. So yeah, that's the thing I've always thought about information security too, is everybody thinks, not everybody, too many people think that this is a specialized skill, that information security is something that's specialized. Sure, there's parts of it that are specialized, but what information security really is it's a life skill. There's so many segues, and I think that's one of the problems that people have with trying to make sense of information security, because the things that are easiest for us to make sense of are things that we can put in a compartment, things that we can put into a box, right? I can put boundaries around it. I can understand it. The problem with information security is it doesn't fit in a box. It's in all of your boxes, right? So, because the more and more people talk about things like this, and the more segues you see between in radical acceptance and information security, it's like, it just reinforces that. Like, so you may think, well, how does this apply to me as a CvCISO? It's like, we could talk for months about all the ways that this applies to you as a CvCISO, not just on the job, but at home.
Yep. Well, listen to this. So from the resource I mentioned earlier, this is a section of it called Why Accept Reality. And think about these things. There's 7 bullet points. Think about these things, and the many ways they apply to life, to mental health, to CvCISO services and everything. But here they are. Rejecting reality does. Changing reality requires first accepting reality. Pain can't be avoided. It is nature's way of signaling that something is wrong. Rejecting reality turns pain into suffering. Hello, someone being taken advantage of, refusing to accept reality can keep you stuck in unhappiness, bitterness, anger, sadness, shame, or other painful emotions. Acceptance may lead to sadness, but deep calmness usually follows. The path out of hell is through misery. By refusing to accept the misery that is part of climbing out of hell, you fall back into hell.
Yeah.
This is a great document. I that's all I'm saying is that's my plug. If you get anything from me, you want to learn about radical acceptance, mental health hackers, that was a great resource I learned of from Evan. Tons of resources there. This was just one.
Yeah.
And it's just very logical, very, you can learn, like I said, checklists of how to do that.
Hey man, I'm gonna be like completely honest with you, because you said there's one thing you get out of me when and this is like, I don't blow smoke. I mean, I do when I am smoking, but I'm not smoking right now.
You blow smoke yesterday.
Yeah, right. I mean, not here. I mean, you can see there's no, hands are free. When I saw you yesterday, and I want you to know this, because I don't know if you know how other people, sometimes see you. Sometimes that's important. You know what I mean? It validates things or whatever. But when I saw you yesterday at Hacks and Hops, it lifted my spirits. You know what I mean? It in a way that it was like, I don't know, it's hard to put words to it. But I thought about that as you were talking, and as you just said, if there's one thing, you have that ability.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I felt the same about you.
No, I don't know. Well, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It's a bromance.
It's a bromance.
It's Brooke Beards.
And you too, Meg. But yeah, I know you got to go. If you could share the link to the resource that you're referring to, I'm going to add that to the podcast description. So listeners, if you want to find the same resource that Jordan's referring to, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this podcast on, just go to the description and you'll see the link and you can go find it.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I think this is just a great this is a lot of, I look forward to these Friday mornings for a number of reasons. One, at the end of the week, it's a great opportunity to just kind of process a little bit, take a step back, think about things. But it's also, you bring these unique perspectives, into my life that are just really important.
Yeah.
So, I hope the podcast listeners also get that same sort of feeling, because the thing you are getting from us is definitely genuine. There's no bullshit here, which is, I think, pretty cool. What do you got? We got anything to say in closing, Meg? And then we'll get to you, Jordon, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, I think the and this year list, Jordon, really spoke to this, and that was the concept that no matter what you choose, there's going to be hardships, and it's just whether or not you want to fester in those hardships or really take a hard right turn and experience joy again. That's my 2 cents.
I love it.
Jordon, how about
Take
you?
it from somebody who's been there.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a damn warrior, Meg.
Yeah. I am a warrior. That is fact.
Yeah, my final point would be, we started out on a pretty deep topic, suicide. And I think that maybe the truth is, too, that there's probably millions of people that haven't committed suicide, but think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Or they're living in some sort of hell every single day. And, might as well, and so we think about the cases where someone actually, lost their life from all this stuff. And those are, devastating, but there's people living every day, living hell.
Yeah.
And maybe put on a smile and no one will ever know. So, I love trying to make this thing get rid of the stigma and just talk about it, because I don't think there's a single person, even if they're uncomfortable when you are talking about it a little bit, I don't think a single person leaves feeling like it was not worth it.
Yeah, and the only thing I want to add to that is that if I think living hell is a perspective, because I think of my life in general, I've got it pretty good. I am a very blessed person, and yet I can still find myself feeling like I'm in a living hell because of, mental health issues or what have you. And again, getting back to radical acceptance, it's accepting this is my reality. This is who I am. This is one of my struggles, but it doesn't have to define me.
That's it.
Yep.
This may be where you're at. This may be who you are, but it doesn't define who you're going to be.
Yep.
It doesn't define where you might go. And it's easier, if there's one thing I know about mental health, there's nothing you can really say to somebody to get them out of it. It's a process.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
But it does have to start with this radical acceptance of, yourself. The same thing with alcoholism, the same thing with addiction. When you get to the point where you stop looking outward at all these other things that may be, when you get real, it's like, that's how I got out of alcoholism. At the end of the day, I'm the damn problem. And I say this to friends sometimes in jest, but it's true. If everybody in the room is an asshole, you're the asshole.
Yeah.
And take that to mental health where it's maybe not so brash. Usually I'm saying that to, biker friends, that, we just beat each other up and stuff. If everything around you is a problem, everything, your situation, your marriage, your job, you are the problem.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's where the healing starts.
You can do something about you. Like Meg said, it's good when you get to that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I came to the realization that I was the problem, then logic came in. It was like, how do I stop being the problem? What are some tools I can learn? There's some baggage I'm always going to carry with me. There's going to be some things that are always going to be part of my reality. But the more I just accept that and put it into its place, the more I can open up to the other parts of life and the other parts of the reality that I've yet to experience.
Yeah.
And that's where the joy, comes from. I think there's so much joy too in contentment, like being content.
Yeah.
And contentment doesn't mean just like content with what I have or content with how much money I've got. Content with me. Am I content with me? Like today, yeah, I know I'm fucked up, but I've always been fucked up. I mean, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
I can't run from me. I mean, that's the cool thing about, I think, all my friends and families, they can get away from me. I can't.
Yeah.
Hey, every morning I get up, I'm like, you're still here? Really?
You're stuck with you. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do another day, pal. All right. I
We
love
should
you
talk
guys.
to ourselves like that more. Like, okay, all right, pick yourself up now. Let's go.
I do. I should record what I do when I'm in my hotel room by myself, because it's nowhere near what, it's nothing like dirty or anything like that. It's like I have conversations with myself like, you're still here. That's good. Did you know that your nose hairs are like almost down into your mouth now? Maybe we should go to Target. Okay, let's go to Target. Nose hairs.
Oh, God. We also found is good for ear hairs.
Yeah.
Next week we want to see a tutorial.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I love you guys. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for being part of my support group. I don't know if you guys know that you are, but you are part of my support group. Talking to you lifts me up. It makes me, hopefully a better person. So
Same.
have a great weekend.
All right.
It was good hugging y'all.
Yep.
I don't know why I said y'all. I don't.
Y'all.
My wife's from Texas.
Minnesota, y'all. Hasta luego.
Bye-bye.